Hey guys, and welcome back to another colour grading tutorial on the channel. If you are new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you guys around a bit more. Now, if you do know who the artist is that took this photo, let me know in the comments and I will of course tag them and link them in the description. I can't actually find out who took this photo. Somebody's obviously uploaded it onto a website where I downloaded it from without giving credit, so I can't find out exactly who it is. So if you do know, let me know and I'll give them some credit. Now, what we're going to be doing today is showing you how you can colour grade in Photoshop, because all of our videos at the moment are just based around Lightroom, and I've had lots of requests of people saying how can I do it in Photoshop. So we're going to do a little quick adjustment using the Camera Raw, which you can find by coming up to Filter and then scrolling down to Camera Raw Filter, or just pasting your raw file straight into Photoshop and you get this window open here. So if you want to know how to edit in more detail from what I tell you in these videos, if you want to know why we make certain edits, why we adjust certain sliders the way we do, and you want to kind of know how to pick apart somebody else's edit, go ahead, check out our course. It is the top link in the description. That would really help us. It helps support the channel and just keeps us, allowing us to do what we love and keep these videos going. Also, like and subscribe. Without wanting to bore you anymore, let's get started in this video. So I'm going to just drop the temperature ever so slightly. Actually, I'm going to leave it about there, just because I like the image to be slightly bluer. Then we're going to boost the contrast just because I think it looks really nice, having a really vivid contrast. It really makes the hair stand out. It really makes everything look quite cool. Just going to clear up some RAM here just because this computer's getting really slow. Okay, so the next thing, I'm going to drop the highlights just because I like to kind of even out the highlights and the shadows. So bring up the shadows just to get some detail out there, drop the highlights just to get some detail out of the highlights. I don't want to go too far, otherwise this image is going to be far too dark. Actually going to increase the shadows a little bit more, because you'll see here we're going to drop the blacks just to give it a little bit more contrast, and then increase the whites. Then I'm going to come along and just increase the exposure ever so slightly as well. Now, I can do quite a bit on this image because obviously this photo was taken, I think, presumably on some sort of Sony camera. So it's a very high quality photo. So this will depend how much you can do on what photo you have and where you took the photo and what camera. Then we're going to drop the clarity. I dropped it to about -12 just because I don't like the image to be over clarified or over clarity, because you'll see what it does. I mean, it makes the hair look cool, it makes the trousers look cool, but it just really doesn't look nice with the leaves in the background. It kind of takes away your eye from the area of interest. So if you drop that to about -12, it just smooths out the overall image. Okay, so the next thing is the tone curve. Now, I'm going to spend a lot of time on the tone curve in this video because I think it's kind of quite a fun thing to mess around with. So I'm going to come onto the point tone curve, not this one, because I don't really like using these tone curves, just because this one's a little bit more easier to kind of be precise with. So first of all, we're going to do a minor S curve, just adding in some of that contrast into the image to start off with. So you can see here, I'm just messing around with the highlights. I don't want to go too bright, but I want to make sure it's fairly bright in the highlights. Then we're going to sort of leave the midtones as they are, maybe brighten them up ever so slightly. And then when we come to the shadows, we're going to try and sort of crush those blacks in just a second, but I want to make sure that it's not too dark, because you'll see here if I just drag this down like this, the image just goes far too dark, which is crushing the blacks, and that's because what we ran with that a bit longer. If you want to try, you can then add in some fade, which is quite a cool effect, where you just sort of drag up the shadows like that and it kind of makes everything slightly more grey. What's fun to do here is it really allows you to kind of add some cool effects with the colours. So you can see you can add reds to the highlights, and I can obviously change the girl's hair colour here. Alternatively, I can come down, I can add some more green. So we're going to just try and do something slightly rogue here. And as I say, I haven't actually edited this photo before, so we're just going to see what we can do with this edit. Usually what I do is do an S curve in the opposite direction, and then I'll do that on all of them. But I just wanted to see, as an experiment, what would happen if I did the S curve in this direction. And what you'll have to do really is do the S curve in the same direction on each of these tone curves, just because what happens is when you increase, so for example we go back onto the reds here, if I drag this to the left we add more reds to the highlights, but if I drag it to the right we add more greens. So when we come onto the green panel down here, if I drag this too far to the left as well, we're going to get a very weird yellow image, where if I drag it to the right, it adds in a little bit more of those reds. So it kind of counteracts what the previous one did, but it also adds a cool kind of colour vibe to the entire image. Now, I have no idea how this is going to turn out with a tone curve like this, but this whole idea of this video is to show you how you can go ahead and edit in Photoshop, so you can see how you can use the tone curves and how you can kind of come in with the colour RGB curves and really play around and see what you can do there. But we're going to see what sort of effect we can get. So we're going for that kind of S-curve like that in all of them, and you can see we've kind of got a cool look going on. So I can't actually show you the before and after, so we'll just leave that like that. And obviously you can come in and you can kind of play around a bit more. I want a bit more blues in the shadows. You can get some really cool looks. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue there, and I'm going to come onto the green side just because I want to take out some of the greens. I really don't like green in the photos that much, and obviously because all of the leaves in the background are green, I don't want to go too overboard. Now obviously in the highlights here, that's where we're adding a lot of the green and the reds, so we're going to sort of pull that back a bit, try and take out some of the greens, and I think that'll do for the tone curve. Now it's a very different effect that you're going to get if you use the tone curve like that. Now you can try out different things. Google online different tone curves, shapes you can try out. You have also got a couple of these you can try as well, but those are basically just the S curves if you try the strong, medium, contrast ones. Then we're going to come into sharpening, and I'm just going to add in some luminance just because that'll smooth out the image a bit more, but you don't want to go too much higher than 12 or 13. Okay, now this is going to be the fun part. This is more of the colour grading part. So this is where we can change the colours, and I do go into a lot of detail in this in our course as well, so go ahead, check that out. That link is in the description if you want to have a go. Now, I'm just adjusting the reds here. It's not really doing anything, so we're going to leave that alone. The yellows, again, oh, that's doing the shirt slightly, so I don't really like the colour of the shirt when it's sort of too green, so we're going to take the oranges back. We've got to be careful as well because it will also adjust the skin tones, so be careful of that. Don't make the skin tone look really weird. Don't just look solely at one part of the image. Okay, so then with the yellows, I think I said yellows when I meant oranges a minute ago. Taking the yellows back because we don't want too much greens in this shirt. Okay, so the greens here, we've got two options. One, we can make it very orange, which I think we're going to do in this video, or we can take it all the way to the right and make it that sort of tealy green, which really goes with her hair. But I want her hair to kind of stand out, so I'm going to take the greens all the way to the bottom. Now actually if I adjust the yellows, we might be able to add some more greens into those leaves. Nope. So I'm going to take the yellows all the way down actually, just because I like the kind of effect where you get a bit of green bleeding through, you get a bit more orange, and it looks kind of quite funky and quite cool. And it's really going to make the hair stand out, and it looks quite different. So we've done some really cool things with the tone curve there, and we're getting some quite interesting colours as well. So the whole point of this edit is to really show you how you can get some really quite cool colours. So now with the blues and aquas, I like to do one of two things. One, I like to take the blues down and the aquas up, or put the blues up and take the aquas down. That's because if I go too far on both the left, it just looks far too teal and it just looks unnatural and weird. I mean, not that this photo looks completely natural at the moment, but you kind of get the idea. So I kind of like the hair like that. I don't want it too teal, but I like the sort of icy blue look. So usually to achieve that, you add in a tiny bit of teal with the blues, but then increase the aquas to the right, and that kind of takes away that really harsh teal, so it's kind of like a desaturated teal, which I really like that look. Now with the purples and magentas, I don't really think we're going to have much difference changing, no, so we'll leave those as they are. Okay, so that's that. Now we're going to come to the saturation. The reds, I'm going to decrease the reds. The oranges, yeah, decrease the oranges, otherwise also the skin tone is going to start to look really strange, so I'm actually going to leave that where it is. The yellows, you see there, because the yellows are kind of like this bokeh in the foreground, I think it's quite cool to have that very different sort of colour vibes bleeding through. So we're going to increase the yellow saturation to about 70. The greens is going to be an interesting one because that's the whole background, and I think, yeah, desaturated is probably the way to go, because otherwise what's going to happen is we're going to have that too saturated. Yes, the image is very vibrant, which is what we're going for, but it takes away from the look of the image, and green is quite a strong colour, so we're going to take that back to about -45, and we can always come back and adjust this as well. Okay, so now we're going to increase the saturation in the aquas, increase the saturation in the blues, or we could actually try like this. No, we'll do it like this. The reason I just tried that was because I want to see how I can get those icy blues, and one way of doing it is decreasing the saturation in the blues, so you get that kind of like icy blue going on, that sort of white, but then it's making the jeans look a bit too strange. So decrease the saturation in the blues ever so slightly, and then we can just leave purple and magentas alone. If anything, I want to just take off the saturation. But yeah, so that's that. Next thing, we're going to work on the hair. We want the hair to really stand out, so we're going to come into luminance, increase the brightness in the blues, and there you go, you've really got those cool, very vibrant icy blues. And then we're going to do the same with the aquas, with the purples. We're just probably not going to do anything now. Oranges, brighten that up, just brighten up the skin tones a little bit, and then the greens, it doesn't really matter too much, to be honest. Increase that slightly if you want. The yellows, again, increase that slightly. I'm just kind of looking at what I do here, and I do go through this in a lot more detail in the course, but I look at where the colours are increasing. So you can see here, that's adding lots of cool highlights on the shirt, whereas if I drop that, it just makes the image look very flat. So we're kind of adding some more colour contrast by using the luminance as well. Now, you don't want to go too overboard, and I'm kind of not particularly liking the colour of the shirt at the moment, and that's mostly because of what happened with this red curve here, but we're going to leave that because the whole idea of this image was to see what we can do with that tone curve and kind of make some funky colours. So now we're on the split toning, and really quickly, if you press Option or Alt on your keyboard, you can drag the slider along and see what colours you want to add to your image. Now, I don't want to add any red into my highlights because I don't like the red in that shirt, so we're probably going to come along to the sort of tealy blues and add that into the highlights, and then into the shadows we might add some oranges or some greens. Just see what it looks, something like that, kind of that more autumnal colour. Basically, see what you like. Sometimes have a look at the colour wheel. That's a cool idea of, you know, messing around, just opposing colours makes it look quite cool sometimes. I'm really liking the red of the berries in the background here. It's kind of giving it a quite cool vibe. And that's basically it, to be honest. Now, the other thing you can do is come onto camera calibration, and you could do a sort of teal and orange colour grade, where you drag up the red primary, drop the blue primary, and we're getting a really cool vibe here where we're making actually all the oranges really quite red, which is quite a cool effect as well. The other thing you can try, because obviously the reason we're getting these sort of deep orange reds is because what we did in the tone curve that I showed you earlier, and because of what we've done in the HSL adjustments with the oranges and the reds and the yellows, because obviously these colours were a sort of yellowy green to start off with, but we've taken out the greens here, we've then adjusted it in the HSL slider, and we've come into camera calibration and we've made those more orange. You can go more pink if you want to, it seems to be making more teal, but yes, I'm going to leave it like that, just because I really like how this is making the hair stand out. I really like the reds, and it's a very different kind of colour grade, very different kind of image. Then you can mess around with the green primary and take out some of the greens if you want, but I think it's just going to go too far if we do that. Okay, so that is what I'm going to do. I don't want to do too much more on this because it's going to go overboard. One thing I'm going to do is come up to here, which is the graduated filter. I'm going to drag it up from the bottom, and what I'm going to do is take the exposure and drop the exposure. Not too much, but enough that I'm not going to see that weird sort of effect going on the bottom of the legs. I want the eyes to be drawn to this part of the image. I am going to increase the saturation as well at the bottom, just because I don't want to take out all the colour by dropping the exposure. Then I'm going to get this sort of tool here, what's it called? An ellipse tool, radial filter it's called actually, yeah. And then brighten that up in the centre there. Now it's kind of, I think, down here. Where's it done it? Oh, okay, so I've taken exposure, so this is adjusting the exposure on the outside of the circle as opposed to the inside. Now you can invert the mask if you want to, but I'm just going to give it a little bit of vignette on the outside, not too much so as it's ridiculously obvious, but then it kind of focuses your attention towards the centre of the image there. That's probably about it. You can use the brush tool if you want to. One thing that's fun, and I'm just pressing open square bracket here to reduce the size of this brush. Then you can come into highlights, for example, and you can just brush in some more highlights if you want. Kind of mess around there. It's kind of quite fun to do. I don't really have time to do it right now in this video, but it's an idea you can try out. Then you can add a little bit of contrast as well. Maybe add some clarity to the hair, really make it a bit more punchy. We'll just do a bit more down here, just so you can get an idea of what you can do with the brush tool. It's the same as what you would do within Lightroom, just you kind of get more control over what you get in Photoshop because you can add noise reduction on the brush as well. Okay, so we're going to click OK with that. It's going to apply the changes. You can see this is what it looked like before, and then in just a minute it's going to overlay our new color grade on top, and it's going to look incredibly different. Now tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you want to see more color grades like this using Photoshop. You can really get some quite cool effects if you edit within Photoshop. It just tends to take a little bit longer, but it kind of depends which one you prefer. I usually use Lightroom. Photoshop is actually quite a cool one to use, and it should load up in just a second. My computer is being really slow. Okay, and look at that. So I'm going to press enter, paste that image on top, and it really is looking quite awesome. So we can see the before and the after. Now, I personally absolutely love this edit. I love this color grade. I really like the blues and the reds we've got going on here. And again, if you do want to check out our course where I go into lots of detail how to make these really cool sort of vibe photos, go check out our course, top link in the description. Go follow me on Instagram, it's Sebastian_JWB, and you can follow Matthew, which is Matthew_GKB as well.